do it.
Is that good enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now, shall we get started? All right.
And I'm going to go to my aunt's presentation. Thank y'all.
Have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to everybody. And I'm grateful, especially to Kathleen today, because I asked her to do this today, because Sophia couldn't come. Sophia is with us, but she's with her mother on pilgrimage. And a special opportunity arose for Sophia to be able to join her mother on pilgrimage, or take her on pilgrimage to Mecca. And so that's where she is. So she asked me to do it, and I was in a rush, and I asked Kathleen last week, and she agreed to do it. And I really appreciate that, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
So Patricia can't be with us either, at least temporarily. So you're at the, you have to deal with me and my technical capacities. And so I'll do my best. But Kathleen, are you ready for the first poem?
I am ready for the first poem. Let me just say, I'll just say a little bit, something about it. Look at the dates of the poet. We're only going to read a little bit of it first. Yeah. Okay. This is a poem by Muriel Rukeyser, 1913 to 1980, called Saint Roach. For that I never knew you. Oh, let me also say something. For that, it's an archaic use of the word. It means because. And it also, probably this poem, it might be useful to know that there is an inspiration for the poem in Christopher Smart's poem about his cat, for my cat Joffrey, from Ube Latte Deo, which is a wonderful sort of praise of his cat and all its wonderful qualities. And that's an 18th century poem, I believe, Jay. I'm not sure. You don't need to have read that, but there is something of that, especially in the repetitive form that she uses. For that I never knew you, I only learned to dread you. For that I never touched you, they told me you were filth, you are filth. They showed me by every action to despise your kind. For that I saw my people making war on you, I could not tell you apart, one from another. For that in childhood I lived in places clear of you. For that all the people I knew met you. For that all the people I knew met you by crushing you, stamping you to death. They poured boiling water on you. They flushed you down. For that I could not tell one from another, only that you were dark, fast on your feet, and slender. How many people have had any experience with cockroaches? Anybody? I can't see too many people here.
Oh.
Yeah. So we could go back out of screen sharing just to the group.
Okay.
Just very briefly. So a lot of people I can't see, but if you've had any experience with cockroaches, just raise your hand. Okay.
Lots of people.
Lots of people. And so I'm imagining as you're reading these first few lines, is this a good description of human relationship with cockroaches or any of your experience?
Kathleen, one year, many years ago, I published a book called Earth, Sky, Gods, and Mortals. And I talked about God's relationship to mortals, things that die, live and die. And I mentioned that God loved cockroaches. And I had a review of the book, and the person was appalled that I would say that, was angry that I would say that.
Yeah.
And it revealed to me the disdain, really, for the insect world.
Yeah.
But cockroaches in particular.
Yes. Yeah, this is pretty visceral, isn't it? I remember I had an apartment with a cockroach in it, and I couldn't kill it. And I had a tuna fish can that I had washed out, that I'd already opened up, and I just put it over it. I didn't know what to do. I really didn't want to touch it. I have to admit, I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to kill it. I didn't want there to be more of them. But in a sense, I guess what I'm saying is, this is not unlike the way cockroaches are treated. Okay, I
Yeah.
have someone who wants to talk. Julie. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think well, the part of BC that I'm in, there's not cockroaches that I'm aware of, but bed bugs can be an extreme problem.
Mhm.
And they're very difficult to get rid of and
Yeah,
very disabling for people.
yes.
Yeah.
So in
And
general,
particularly our really SRO dwellings for people that are near homelessness are ridden with cockroaches.
yeah,
And people will often rather, or they don't even want to stay in a shelter or one of these places. They'd rather be outside because of the the bed bugs,
yeah, yes. So, I mean, I don't think this is I'm not standing in judgment, because I've had my experience with cockroaches too, but when you have a lot of them in a place you're living in, people do flush them down the toilet, people do stamp them to death and do all of these things. It's a pretty visceral experience. And as I understand it, this author did have an experience with cockroaches, which got her started writing on this poem. And it's true, you look at them, they look all the same. For that, I could not tell one from another. And they certainly are fast on their feet, right? So let's read a little further. Let's put the poem up and read from there till the end. And if Jay, if you could just lift it up a little bit, that would be great. Maybe to the end.
I think I'm there.
Yes, good. And there is actually a couple spaces here which are significant. And I'll pause when there's a space in terms of a stanza. Not like me, for that I did not know your poems, and that I did not know any of your sayings, and that I did not speak or read your language, and that I did not sing your songs, and that I do not teach your children to eat your food, our children to eat your food, or know your poems, or sing your songs, but that we say you are filthing our food, but that we know you are not at all. Yesterday, I looked at one of you for the first time. You were lighter than the others in color. That was neither good nor bad. I was really looking for the first time. You seemed troubled and witty. Today, I touched one of you for the first time. You were startled, you ran, you fled away, fast as a dancer, light, strange, and lovely to the touch. I reach, I touch, I begin to know you. If we were to imagine this poem like a piece of music with different movements, for example, a concerto or a symphony, if you had an andante, allegro, you have names for the different sections which describe their movements. Do you feel that this is somewhat like that in terms of the shifting tonalities and rhythms and understandings? You can put that in your own words. What is your experience of reading the poem after that first section we read? Is there something else happening here now? And I could read it again for those who have not read the full poem. For that I never knew you, remembering that this really means because I never knew you, I only learned to dread you. For that I never touched you, you told me you were filth. They told me you are filth. They showed me by every action to despise your kind. For that I saw my people making war on you. I could not tell you apart, one from another. For that in childhood I lived in places clear of you. For that all the people I knew met you by crushing you, stamping you to death. They poured boiling water on you, they flushed you down. For that I could not tell one from another, only that you were dark, fast on your feet, and slender, not like me. For that I did not know your poems, and that I did not know any of your sayings, and that I cannot speak or read your language, and that I do not sing your songs, and that I do not teach our children to eat your food, or know your poems, or sing your songs, but that you are filthing our food, but that we know you not at all. Yesterday, I looked at one of you for the first time. You were lighter than the others in color. That was neither good nor bad. I was really looking for the first time. You seemed troubled and witty. Today, I touched one of you for the first time. You were startled, you ran, you fled away, fast as a dancer, light, strange, and lovely to the touch. I reach, I touch, I begin to know you. We start out with a poem ostensibly about a cockroach. What is happening here? And we can go to take down screen share. What is happening to you as you read this? What's
Nita, you have a lot of experience with creatures, but I've never
Yes.
heard you speak of your relationship to insects. Go for it.
Well, we do have, we've lived on a ranch and we now live in the country. And so tarantulas, scorpions, cockroach, they're all plentiful around here. But I tend to befriend them by and large. I have to say, when I was reading this poem, I wasn't thinking about insects.
yeah,
I kept trying to discern whether it was speaking about
Mhm.
Black people, Indian people, indigenous, First Peoples.
mhm.
I wasn't thinking of insects at all because I don't really have an adverse relationship with insects.
Yeah, interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. Well, there's certainly a shift, isn't there? We're talking about poems and sayings and language and songs and children, right? There's
Well, and
suddenly,
what struck me is that in order to have any appreciation and connection for the divine essence of anything, that we need to see, hear, touch, feel what that creature is experiencing, to
yes,
have a shared moment in some ways.
to not see them as totally other.
Mhm.
So I think this starts out on a very literal level. Look at the title, Saint Roach. Why would she call it Saint Roach?
Mm.
Uh, is the roach teaching her something? If she has an actual experience with a roach, cockroach, right? And maybe she does have an experience where she is repelled, as many people are. They just, they honestly would say they're repelled. They don't have that much contact with insects or whatever. It takes her to a different place. I think she may still always in the background here in our first reading, I think always the visceral, physical way we read a poem kind of stays with us, which I think is what makes this so powerful. But I would suggest, and I think most people agree, that she's talking about more than insects, her relationship with insects. I'll tell you a little bit about Muriel Rukeyser. She was Jewish. She's writing this after World War II. And she was an activist poet for which she was criticized heavily. She received a lot of criticism for this. And she's running in the civil rights movement. And she was a very feminist poet, standing up for the rights of others. So you can see how this poem for her it's really more about more than the cockroach, although the cockroach somehow does teach her something, right? The cockroach is a saint because it's a teacher. It becomes a model for her. It becomes a means, a spiritual means by which she sees the other, right? At what point do you find in the poem that there's a shift for you? Is there a place where the poem begins to shift or really speaks to you? You go, aha, I think I'm getting something here different. You just raise your hand. Yeah.
Sherry? Unmute, please. Thanks.
We can't hear you, Sherry. Can you unmute?
He looks unmuted. Try again, one more time. Yeah. No, we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's not. Oh, I'm so sorry. We got something in the chat here. Okay, no, okay. This is not an easy poem, is it? It's not a pleasant poem. It's not a pleasant poem. It's kind of a slow approach, isn't it? From the distance, from repulsion, from not understanding to denial. And then there's a sudden shift. We don't know why. Yesterday, I looked at you, one of you, for the first time. And really, she really starts to see that this person has qualities, or this being troubled and witty. And then there's more of an approach. I touched one of you for the first time, and recognizing that I had harmed you, you ran away. Isn't that line beautiful? Fast as a dancer, light, strange, and lovely to the touch. It's a beautiful line. It's a beautiful description. It's actually a beautiful description of a cockroach, an insect moving quickly, but it's also a recognition that there's something beautiful in the other. So
I think a line that really struck me was at the beginning was, I could not tell you apart one from another. Because I think that so represents the way
yeah,
that we treat othered groups.
right.
You all look the same. There's no differentiation. There's no genuine individuality.
Mm.
You're a mass.
A man.
And then for me, the shift was that I actually loved was, I did not know your poems. I do not know any of your sayings. I cannot read your language or speak it. I do not sing your songs. I do not teach our children to eat your food. And I just thought that was a beautiful personification. I don't mean imposing something. I mean a recognition that you are a you.
You're you.
You're not an it. You're a you. And also the sense of individuality, the record, it shifts from collective to individual to me.
Beautiful. Yes.
And so I'm really touched by it myself.
And you know that things like language, sayings, food, children, those are all intimate things. By keeping apart from those things that another shares, then you are keeping yourself apart. You're enforcing that not knowing.
We, just a note about those of us that live in the United States, and the election is forthcoming. And by the way, forgive my dogs in the background. I don't know if you can hear barking, but there's obviously a devil outside, and they are repelling it from my house. They do it many times a day. But politicians will begin to speak of immigrants in these terms.
Yeah.
It's a collective mass of non-individuated creatures who are, and this is the word that some will use, invading our nation.
Yes.
So they're cockroaches.
Yes, like invading a house, like our domicile. So, you know, she's writing at the time, she's certainly thinking of the Holocaust, the dehumanization of Jews, the crushing of Jews. She's thinking, I think, of women's rights. She's thinking of gay rights. She's very outspoken, Black rights at this whole time. And, you know, the poem still speaks to us now, as Jay said. We continue to do this dehumanization of the other. And, you know, I think it's something, I work with homeless people, and it's not easy, you know, people seem different than you in some ways. They look different. Their clothes are different. Their smells are different. They're just, and to see the other finally, they're just like me. It's an encounter. Really, their lives are as precious to them as my life is to me, or our lives to any of us. Whatever condition, it's not a matter of pity, because those lives have dignity and beauty, and they love their own lives as much as we do. So I can say that I've had to overcome some things myself.
Yeah, I'm sure so.
Okay, and so this poem reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on. This is not an easy
Oh,
poem.
Leo had a comment. Leo,
Oh,
go
good,
ahead.
Leo, wonderful.
Yeah, I just came from an echo fair at the local university. The Herpetology Society was there, displaying a snake, an Australian skink, and a tortoise. Like Nita, I did not see the insect at the beginning of this poem. But when I see the insect and relate it with the human element, the kinship with insects and other animals brings me closer together to a kinship with humans as well.
Yeah.
They're interconnected.
Yes.
My grandson went to a camp sponsored by that university, and one of the students said, "What did you learn about nature?" He said, "Well, I like nature, but I like spiders better now." And they would let daddy longlegs on their hands, so they got intimate with spiders during that camp. So I think the kinship of the smallest creature brings us closer together as since we're all creatures.
Yes, yes. I think she's still, I think even at the end, when we see this more human term, she's still speaking about cockroaches too. All. Yeah. Let's look at the next poem that might speak more to what you're thinking about, Leo, and other people too. Now, this poem actually should be in couplet, so there should be space between every two lines, which gives it a little more spaciousness, but it's not that important. This is by Tu Fu, who's an 8th century Chinese landscape poet, and the translator is David Hinton. He's a renowned translator of ancient Chinese poetry. He's a Buddhist, and he does a beautiful job of explaining how he does these translations, and quite a bit about Buddhism and how these poems express Taoism. When he works with these characters, there's often several characters embedded in one character. They're very complex. They're ancient Chinese characters, and they often have no prepositions, no verbs, or if they do have verbs, no verb tenses. So he's working in this big space of unknowing when he does this. And to give you just a little bit of a few thoughts on Taoism, and I love the way he describes it, as the cosmos is a single living tissue, a generative tissue out of which things emerge and which into they fall back. So there's this constant generation and then disappearing into a void. So I think when I read the poem, which I would suggest you listen to without reading, with your eyes closed, see if you can feel any of this. Dawn Landscape by Tu Fu. The last watch has sounded in Amble-Ah. Radiant color spreads above Solar Terrace Mountain. Then cold sun clears high peaks. Mist and cloud linger across layered ridges. And earth split open hides river sails deep. Leaves clatter at heaven's clarity. I listen and face deer at my bramble gate. So close here, we touch our kind in each other. So I'll read it again, and feel free to open your eyes and read along. Dawn Landscape. The last watch has sounded in Amble-Ah. Radiant color spreads above solar terrace mountain. Then cold sun clears high peaks. Mist and cloud linger across layered ridges, and earth split open hides river sails deep. Leaves clatter at heaven's clarity. I listen and face deer at my bramble gate. So close here, we touch our own kind in each other. So let's go to this. Yeah, let's go to this screen. So what is generating the first 6 lines of this poem? When you hear it read out loud, where does it feel like it's coming from, these words and images? I mean, what's happening for you when you listen to them? What's happening in your head?
Well, I saw a sunset.
Who's
Julie.
Well, it's dawn.
Oh, it's dawn. Oh,
Dawn
well, for
Lynn.
me, it was setting. I didn't read it. I didn't read the title.
But that's okay, because you know what, it probably was last watch. It's the last watch is in the morning at 7 a.m. So that's probably what did that. I get that. That makes sense, actually. Yeah. So you're seeing, yes, you're seeing that a time of day when the sun is changing, when the landscape is changing. I mean, who's the subject here? Who's speaking? I guess that's the question. What do you feel like if you had your eyes closed, you know, who was speaking all of this? Where were these images coming from? Do they seem like they're coming out of the voice of a person in the beginning? Yeah, Nita.
Nita?
Yeah, for me, what's speaking is divine essence in nature. And I encounter deer all the time, and sunrises and sunsets are my regular venue. And I can't separate it. I find that last sentence where it says, I found myself in you. One day, a neighbor and I were searching for deer antlers around. We were on a big hike, and she had a particular affinity with this one deer that she had just a neat relationship, came to visit her often. And he had a huge rack of antlers. And so we went searching by the time the shedding began to happen. And I said, you know, wouldn't it be funny if we walked miles and miles and miles? Wouldn't it be funny if those antlers were just right there in your front yard? And we got back from this day-long hike, and those antlers were there in her yard. And I thought, you know, so to me, do we have to look that far for divine essence? It is in the sunrise. It is in the sunset. It is the sunset and the sunrise and the deer antlers.
Yes. Yeah, and the I here doesn't come in until later in the poem. It's not until the end of the 6th line, till the very end of the poem. We're so used to in Western poems having the I be at the center. I this, I saw that, right? And here it's very different. It's as if the landscape, the landscape is generating itself. It is the cosmos generating itself, the divine generating itself. That light, there's that sound, the last watch. Well, that's a human call. It starts out with that sound, and then that radiant color. It spreads across the mountain. I mean, you could have a little video. Did anybody see a little film in their head?
I've been to China a good many times, and been to mountain scenes like that. And also I taught Taoism. That was my profession, to teach the world's religions. And both of those inform my reading of this, but I'll get to the point. The first lines presented something which was for me kind of sublimely clear.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes sublimity is vague, and and a little, mysterious. But this was a sense of sublimely clear, but not intimate in the way his relationship to the deer was intimate.
Mhm,
And so it was the presence of the deer at his gate that provided a kind of intimacy,
yes.
a kinship. And his eye awakened with that.
Mm, mm.
The intimacy in the sense of I emerged at the same time in the poem. I think they're both quite beautiful, but to me they were kind of different kinds of beauty. The
Absolutely.
mountainous sublimity, clear, but not exactly like your relationship to a deer. That's a different kind of beauty. That's what I felt.
Yeah, yeah. Has anyone had an experience with an animal that they can relate to in this way? It sounds like Nita has.
Leo?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Leo?
we have an urban park or reserve in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. And a lot of people walk around the artificial lake to see the deer.
Mhm.
Twice a year, they have candlelight hikes on the
Mm.
trails. And I asked, well, that must keep the deer hidden. And the spokesperson said, oh, no, the deer are not intimidated. They still come out. So that there's a warm relationship. The deer are used to humans trekking through those woods, and humans anticipate seeing the deer, sometimes as close as 10 feet from the trail. And so
Yeah.
there's a real affinity experienced in that oasis.
Mhm. Mhm. And, and in addition to what Leo and Nita have shared, I think we have this experience with our pets at times as well, or even a creature as large as a horse. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how that clarity, that first image, and then there are images too, where things become clear and then they become less clear. The mist and mountain, the mist and cloud, there's some hiddenness there. And then there's the earth splitting open, but it's also hiding, the river sails. And then there's the leaves clattering, almost like a bell, it's ringing. And then there's that final image. One of the things that David Hinton wrote about this that I just loved, and I think for us as Westerners, unless we're practicing this spirituality, we might not think about, but what he says is that this whole way of seeing the universe and everything around us is a spiritual practice of attentiveness that prepares for the ending, that prepares us for that encounter with the deer. So, I think this is a lot about attention. It's very different than the other poem, isn't it? It's very different. The other poem it's very messy. That other poem is so human and it's so messy in a way. The emotions are thick and embodied. And this is a very quiet attentiveness.
I was struck by the oppositions. Cold sun. We think of the sun as hot.
Yeah.
Here it's cold. Clouds that linger rather than sail across the sky.
Beautiful.
Earth contrasted with the river, I suppose underground rivers, for example. And I think those oppositions prepare us for the kinship of the deer and the eye in the last two lines. That nothing is ultimately oppositional.
They all come together. That's beautifully expressed. I think it's that yin yang, and the bridge that's always between. That's beautiful. Yes. So I found this a poem that gave some one worldview isn't necessarily, I'm not saying one poem is better than the other. And I think they both come to similar places by very different means. I think we have something to learn about our humanity and place in the world from both of them. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, this is a poem by Margaret Noodin. And she writes first, and I hope I can pronounce this right, Anishinaabemowin. That's the language of the Potawatomi, and then some other, maybe Ojibwe. So it's an indigenous language, and she writes first in that and then in English. Trust. Trust that you know some people who will surprise you with the way they care for the world and every small spider, the way they are for you as you open and shut, then open again. Polish the way they shine. Recognize yourself in shared shelves in shared water. I'll read that again. Trust that you know some people who will surprise you with the way they care for the world and every small spider, the way they are for you as you open and shut, then open again. Polish the way they shine. Recognize yourselves in shared water. So you can close out of that. What lines or images in this resonated with you or vibrated in you? Surprised you or delighted you? Just call out and share. Or write it in the chat if you don't feel like talking. That's another option too. Quiet group today. There's no right or wrong. It's just what worked for you.
Well, the words shared water, I find there's a lot in that.
Yeah. Say more about that.
That we are occupying these spaces together. We might not typically think of it in that way, but the sense of living in the same body of water, I guess.
Yeah.
The one thing that really jumps out at me, and I was reading this poem to my mom last night, she's 88. She always liberated spiders from our home. Growing up, that was a strong image for me. She would always take spiders carefully and then take them outside and release them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I was telling her, I was reading this poem to her, telling her, it
How
reminded
did
me.
she understand it, Karen? What did she think of it?
Well, I don't know if she remembered doing that because she's losing some of her
Mhm.
memory, but I was gonna have to remind her, you would say this, you would do that. But yeah, I mean, I did that with my daughter when she was growing up too, and told her that that's what my mom did. So it did feel like a connection to family. But I'm not sure. I'm absolutely not sure if she remembered doing it.
Yeah.
From her response.
I had a question about when Kathleen read the sentence, the way they are for you. I myself read that sentence, the way they are for you. And let me,
Yeah.
because some people who will surprise you the way they care for the world,
Yeah.
in that sense of care.
Yeah.
So I read every small spider the way they are for you, in almost caring for you. I'm not saying that's the right way to read it. I'm just saying that's the way I read it. And it was, and I couldn't quite think myself into that. I'm saying I read it in a way that did not permit me to really think my way into it, because I didn't think the spiders really care for us, but I accented the for. So you read it in a way that enabled me to think of it differently in a good way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you're saying that. I did read it as the people caring for the world and every small spider and for you.
Uh-huh.
So and do spiders care for you? Well, maybe I've heard,
They catch flies.
things for us. They certainly do a lot of things for the world that are really important. Um,
And what do you think is being open and shut? Is that
Yeah,
a
that was my
door?
question too. Yeah.
as you open and shut, then open again. What is that kind of opening and shutting? What's the, how do we open and shut? Do you ever feel like you open and shut? Yep, I see
I think
here.
it's the ability to be vulnerable and to pay attention.
Yeah. We shut down when we get hurt, right? I mean, I can relate to this. Shutting down, withdrawing, being self-protective, giving up, or shutting down when you get scared or angry. And then as you said, Nina, the opening up means vulnerability, or an ability maybe to start receiving again, right?
I think where the opening words too are striking me, the sense of not always approaching things with so many preconceptions about others. Trust that you know some people who will surprise you with the way they care for the world. You would be surprised at who might be a completely different way than your preconceptions of them might assume. I love that.
Yes, yes. It's a very gentle opening. I mean, in a way, she's using commands here, right? Trust, polish, recognize, but there's something about the tone of it it's sort of giving sweet and wise counsel, trust that you will know. This is said to someone maybe, this speaks to us in times when we don't expect that.
I really love polish the way they shine.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, that's a kind of take-home phrase
It
for me.
is. It is. It's interesting because if you have been shutting and opening, so if you've been shutting down and then you open up enough to let somebody in and care for you and have something go back and
Yeah.
you have just received, and maybe you're still vulnerable, and then to say, now you polish them, you polish what has been given, you polish this thing, this giving, this loving, this opening toward you. It's such a physical word, right? You're going to polish your china or silver or something, but it's used in terms of a person, of being.
Do you think that the first poem led us to polish the way cockroaches shine?
Yes,
It was the same sensibility.
it is.
You let something shine. You help something shine.
Yes. I do. It became very gentle at the end of the last poem. It really did. It moved from sort of a harsh voice to a very gentle one.
Mm.
And then recognize. I think it relates to the first poem, and then recognize yourselves in shared water.
Yeah.
Recognize yourself. And the shared water is this world, but it's also water is life-giving and necessary.
Yeah.
Recognize yourself also, not only as the person that's been given, but that you polish. Recognize how you do this for each other. This relationship. In a way, all these poems have something to do with relationship in different ways of coming to terms with it and recognizing something that we share.
And you can almost hear a kind of biblical axiom in it. Come, let us find our shared water.
Yeah.
Let us seek shared water.
Yes.
We may be enemies, but no. Let us find or discover our shared water.
Mm-hmm.
It's an aspirational ideal,
Beautiful.
but a beautiful way to put it.
So few words that say so much. This is a poem I'm going to memorize. I just want this to carry this poem around.
The first line implies that you already know some people. We don't need the word already, but trust that you know some people who will surprise you. We sometimes make generalities. The world's going to hell and people are terrible. But the people we already know have surprises in them if we pay attention.
If
their particularities.
yes.
And so it's a very positive poem.
Can I say something?
Yes, who's there? Who's yes,
Julie.
Julie,
Julie.
yeah.
Yeah, I find this, yeah, I really like this poem a lot. And, you know, I'm in a place of being a caregiver for my mom who's 90 and also for my son, an adult son to a certain extent. And so often, you know, in that caregiver role. And I love that line about trust that, you know, some people who will surprise you, you know, like, let's change the roles up a little bit here. And I want to be cared for too. So,
Yeah.
and it's a nice reminder of that. I really like that.
Yeah. Surprises in all three of these poems. Surprise where the end goes in the first. I got to know you. I see who you are. Maybe we don't know who everyone is, and let them surprise you. And then the beautiful movement toward the deer at the end. We don't
And
have.
Jules had a comment.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, Jules,
Yes.
let's see.
Um,
I love the idea of leaving space to get to know the people you know even more. They can always surprise you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Jules.
And then Greta also wrote, as a therapist, the last two so resonated with me. I want clients to see the way they shine. Oh,
Yeah, oh, nice.
the inherent strengths within them and feel that we as humans are in this journey together. Oh, that's beautiful too. Both of those, just beautiful. Thank you.
You know, when I do sing-along music with folks with Alzheimer's, there are moments when I think we have shared water.
Yeah.
And it's shared water.
Yeah.
There's a togetherness.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what love is. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think this is a poem to carry around, to remind us of these things. And they can be so small seeming, such quiet things in our lives with people. Yeah. Let's move on to the last poem, Big, by Rosemerry, Wahtola, Trommer. And I think, let's see. That's fine. We don't have to worry. That's fine, not to worry.
Okay.
So I just want to see how your idea of what she's saying about big changes as you go through the poem. And then also whether at first do you think it's narcissistic? And if, I mean, what are your first impressions? And then where does this go? Where does this go? Big, by Rosemerry, Wahtola, Trommer. This is perhaps the year to learn to be big. Spruce tree big, cliffside big, big as mesa, as mountain lake, big as cosmos, as in love. Being small has never served me, constricting, contorting, trying to fit into a room, into shoes, into a name. Let this be the year to escape all those little rules with the little shoulds, all those little cages with their little locks. Time to make of myself a key, time to lean into immensity, time to supersize communion, time to grow beyond self, time to open, to unwall, to do as the universe does, accelerating as I expand, not rushing towards something else, no, but changing the scale of space itself. Read it one more time. This is perhaps the year to learn to be big, spruce tree big, cliffside big, big as mesa, as mountain lake, big as cosmos, as in love. Being small has never served me, constricting, contorting, trying to fit into a room, into shoes, into a name. Let this be the year to escape all those little rules with all those little shoulds, all those little cages with their little locks. Time to make of myself a key, time to lean into immensity, time to supersize communion, time to grow beyond self, time to open, to unwall, to do as the universe does, accelerating as I expand, not rushing towards something else, no, but changing the scale of space itself. Any thoughts, reactions to the poem?
I couldn't help but go back to the recent eclipse here in Texas, and I know some of the others of you experienced it fully. How vast the cosmos is, and how minuscule I felt, and yet how beloved I felt all at the same time. And if there was ever a time I think we need our bigness, it's now, as a part of the universe to make a difference. We have to be big right now. We just have to.
Yeah, yeah. Is there one line that really spoke to you? That you said, yeah, I get that.
I know so many people who could resonate with the desire to escape all those little rules
Yeah.
with those little shoulds, all those little cages with their little locks.
It's like we have a tight rubber band around us so many times. Yeah. One of the things I like about this poem is the way it begins with landscape, then it moves to the self, as if the self is different than landscape, but not really. She keeps changing my ideas about bigness. Keeps undergoing little changes here and there, and I'm not really. I like how it moves. Jules, would you share?
Hey everybody. I've been caregiving, so I'm listening and taking in the poems as I'm caring for my mom and my kids. So I just want you to know I'm with you. And this poem, oh my gosh. Well, just a side note on the last poem that we just wrapped up, when Jay mentioned shared water, I heard oneness, that equals oneness. And then to hear this poem, I love this poem. I love this poem because I'm actually a spiritual wellness coach, and this speaks to my work of what I do with my clients, unlocking all these small moments, right, with them. I'm not really the one doing the unlocking. I'm just witness to it. I'm just with them. And the smallness doesn't serve us, right? Because it's our alignment to not only that oneness with each other, but to source, right? And so it doesn't serve us to be small. It doesn't serve us to have these, limiting ideas of who we are. Even just looking at ourselves in this body form is so limiting to who we really are. And so this poem was just beautiful, and I took a screenshot of it so I can spend lots of time with it after this call because it was just so beautiful. But I had to, I got everybody settled inside so I could run out and speak with y'all and just share my heart on that one. Thank you for sharing this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. I am so glad to hear that. And I hope, maybe it's a good poem to pass on to people who need to hear that or to have it.
Absolutely. That's what I felt like too. I thought, oh, great. I have a poem that I can share with clients and say, hey, what do you feel from this? Because there's so much to unpack and so much to be inspired by and revelations to come through.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to just share what Sherry said in case people haven't seen it.
Yes.
She said, time to make of myself a key.
Oh.
Sherry, thank you.
And, you
Thank
know,
you.
we talked and the other poem was open and shut, then open again. When we make ourselves, when we're constricted, it's really hard to be open, isn't it? It's really hard to do that kind of opening. Yeah. You know, as a poet, sometimes I read things, you know, I'm reading things as a poet, and I thought, well, you know, some poets might end this poem, time to unwall, to do as the universe does. That's what, you know, I can see a lot of poets ending there. But what I really love is, she says, accelerating as I expand. Of course, there's that I again, that I expand, but guess what she does? She does something so extraordinary in the last couple lines, and I'm not sure I can put it into any better words than she can. I'd love to hear what people have to say as I expand. Is this, you think, is this ego? What's going on here? No, not rushing towards something else, not even toward herself. No, but changing the scale of space itself. What do you make of that? I mean, what do you feel when you hear that? Like, what goes through your head? What? I'm so curious about what people are feeling or thinking there.
I think in that last stanza, she's changed big into a verb. It had worked as a static image,
Beautiful.
and then we get into it's accelerate. It's not a static bigness. It's a bigness that is always growing, as does love. And so you asked, is this narcissistic or egoistic? It's a bigness of being able to participate in the bigness of love and life, bigness of the cosmos, and that
Yes.
we're part of that. But we don't have to feel ourselves a small part. We are the bigness itself, as a
We are.
verb.
Yes. We are part of it the same way everything in that second poem is part of it. The solar terrace mountain and the deer and in trust as well. Yes, the scale of space. I think she's talking about really space in a different kind of way, isn't she? The scale of love.
Yeah, Nita used the phrase spacious heart in her
Beautiful.
comment. Spacious heart. That is a different kind of space.
Yeah. It's not space that occupies space. It's a space that becoming, always coming into being and growing. But where is it? You know, everywhere, potentially.
But I think we all know people. Do you know people? I know people that have spacious hearts.
Mhm.
And then I know people whose hearts are not quite so spacious. There are degrees of space capacity. But it's not an ego thing. It's not a spacious ego.
No.
It's a spacious heart, I think.
I love that. That was the line that I loved at the end, you know, accelerating as expand, not rushing towards something else. No, but changing the scale of space itself. And I've been thinking about, I was feeling quite lost in a certain way, and thinking about the Hebrew people when they were lost in exile, and how the beginning part of the Old Testament is written when they were in exile. You know, Genesis was written when they were in exile, and how I was thinking, what would be the story I would write while I'm feeling like I am in this certain kind of exile. And I think what that writing is about changing the scale of space itself and understanding the framework that we live in. Likewise with the Bible, you know, we wrote the rules for living, right? a way to be in the world and understand the creation of the world. And so these are sort of big ideas. And this line really helps with that.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So this kind of space isn't a place, is it? And sometimes the longing for, when we're lost, it isn't for some people, a certain place is a place they need to go. They need to have contact with a certain place. They recognize a certain homeland, or they need to go somewhere, make a pilgrimage, do something that's really important. But this is a space of, how do we belong in this universe? How do we belong? I think that I love what you said.
And it's a kind of space of courage too.
Mm.
If you're victimized, if you feel you're a victim, and you are a victim, you need to reimagine yourself. You need to, just to cope, just to be resilient, you need to reframe things. And so that capacity for reframing is a kind of spatial expansion too.
Mm-hmm. You really feel that kind of space inside you, in the yoga practice, you're always talking about open heart and trying, you're doing it physically, but you're trying to feel it inside. Those little cages, those little shoulds take me back to the first poem, actually. I know I keep taking us back there, but there's a lot of shoulds. There's a lot of cages. There's a lot of cages in that first part of that poem. I'm not going to look at you. I'm going to crush you, and I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to see you, who and what you are. I'm going to be tight and hold to that. I am shut. The door is shut, and then it gets opened up. It like you say, it takes courage to undo shoulds. As much as we'd like to let go of things, it really takes courage. For some, this thing about those little shoes sounds ridiculous, but if someone loves shoes and maybe is a little vain about their feet, it may be hard to say, I'm sorry, but I have to wear sneakers all the time to be comfortable. I'm going to give up. That's a small, tiny little example. Seems insignificant, but think about the bigger things. They're very hard to do.
But it's a reframing too.
It's a reframing.
I'm not the person that, I don't wear those shoes.
Yeah.
That's not me anymore.
Yeah.
They're little shoulds. And the poem starts off tentatively. I perhaps the year to be, learn to be.
Good point.
And as the author shifts the paradigm to participate in the bigness, the confidence grows, and the little things are seen as little and can be left behind.
Yeah. Yeah, Leo, you're saying that makes me see another phrase, let this be. It doesn't mean she's necessarily doing it. She's giving encouragement to herself, isn't she? Let this be the year to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Comment here too. Karen says infinity, and then Jules says it takes courage not to be busy and rush along to the next.
That's right.
Yeah, reframing is a spatial expansion. Yeah.
We need to close because we're past time.
Oh, we are.
So, but we can nonetheless make keys of ourselves, I think.
Kathleen, when I read these poems to my wife in preparation, I said, what a medley of, how are we going to make sense of these 4 poems? But you did a wonderful job, and I see how they're cohesive together as a unit as well. Thank you very much for your selection and facilitation.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you for sticking with that first poem. It's not easy. It's not an easy poem. So thank you. It was wonderful. I treasure your comments. Really beautiful today. And I hope these last 2 poems, especially, and the other one too, go with you. Help. Yeah. Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, welcome back, Patricia.
Thank you. It was glorious. The jazz band from Central High School was here, and my mom and sister came. We're her family here in Little Rock, and she was just real grateful. So I'm very grateful y'all gave me the space to do that.
Well, easy to do. We missed you, but you know, it's
God bless. And thank you, Kathleen. You did a great job.
oh, you're welcome.
And such good choices too.
They were tough. That was tough at first.
I think, we went from the small to the large physically. Cockroaches and spiders, little spiders, to the cosmos. In a way, back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad.
They're worst journeys to take.
We don't have a clear plan for our last week. We were going to evaluate
That's right.
point and see what we wanted to do.
Well,
Well,
Jay,
we won't have Sophia. I would be perfectly happy with you, Patricia, and Kathleen and Mary Elizabeth choosing poems that we look at. Each of you choose one?
would you, you know what, how about, what if we did a poem by Hafiz Rumi in honor of Sophia?
That's probably a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
That's
or
a good idea.
we could all choose our favorite ones that I don't know. But whatever.
Well, I mean, we all choose Sufi poems. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in honor of
That's a good idea. Let's do it.
I love it. So we'll have 4 poems, either Sufi or, Rumi or Hafiz, and
Yep.
great. If
I already know. I know what I'm going to do.
lucky,
we could probably communicate that, right? Just so that we're not double, maybe we should, yeah.
I think it's okay. And we do it in honor of Sophia.
Okay, if we get double, we get double.
And so we don't have to pretend that we're experts, but they're lures for feeling, springboards for reflection.
Yeah.
how about I email, since Mary Elizabeth's not here today, I'll email the group, I'll ask for poems, and how about we reply all so we see which poem everybody's choosing, and like you said, Kathleen, so we don't accidentally pick 2 of the same poems.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, I'm going to pick a saying from Ibn al-Arabi.
What is
And
it
so
called?
well, it's not a poem by Sufi or Hafiz, by Rumi or Hafiz, but it's a Muslim Sufi essayist, Ibn al-Arabi.
Okay.
And it's just a nice invitation toward open-heartedness and freedom from parochialism, but it's beautifully put.
Okay.
My heart is open unto every form. It's a cloister for Christian monks. It's the Kaaba of the pilgrim. It's the Torah of the Jew. It's a pasture for gazelles. Love is my religion. In whatsoever directions it leads, I follow. And I just think that'd be a nice homily, poetic homily. So that's what I'll choose.
That
Okay.
sounds perfect.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
I'm very excited for our last week, though. This will be
Yeah,
fun.
it's a good idea, a great idea.
Yes.
All right. Peace
Okay.
to all.
Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.